Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving straight into a massive, truly mind-bending historical mystery, one that's literally been hiding in plain sight for over 4,000 years. We're traveling all the way back to the dawn of the Bronze Age, right to the heart of Central Asia and Mesopotamia. We're going to examine a specific artifact that completely rewrites how we understand the mysterious birth of Sumerian art, the origins of human morality, and even how we view the afterlife. Seriously, by the end of this, you're going to see how some of humanity's deepest spiritual beliefs were literally engineered into stone.
Okay, picture this. Imagine a beautifully carved, incredibly heavy stone statue. Now imagine that it was deliberately designed not to be carved from a single block of stone. Instead, it was meticulously engineered to fall into three completely separate pieces. No glue, no vegetable resin, no pins holding it together, just pure, perfect geometric balance, held together entirely by the tension of its own mass. It's a massive puzzle. You have to ask yourself, why on earth would ancient artisans go through the immense mathematical and structural trouble to create a modular sculpture?
We'll meet the star of our mystery, the Bactrian Princess. She dates back to somewhere between 2300 and 1700 BC, coming to us from the Bactria-Margiana Archaeological Complex, or BMAC for short. Just look at the stunning contrast here. You've got the smooth, pristine white limestone and calcite forming her face and upper body, and then this heavy, dark green chlorite and steatite robe completely enveloping her lower form. It is absolutely a breathtaking piece of art, right? But the thing is, it's not just a pretty object. It's actually a profound theological statement.
So, to really understand the ancient mind and unpack the mysterious birth of Sumerian art, we have to look closely at geometric patterns. And I'm talking about the very patterns first perfected on the everyday pottery and ceramics of Mesopotamia and the Ur region. See, these early urban cultures didn't just decorate things just for the fun of it. Every single incision, every overlapping line you see, was part of a highly disciplined, cosmic worldview. The real clues to why she was built in three pieces, they're hidden right there in the geometry of her garments.
Just look at the incredibly specific design carved into her heavy green skirt. This is what's known as the imbricated mountain pattern. Basically, rows of overlapping, scale-like rounded mounds. Now, in early Mesopotamian and Ur regional art, this exact geometry had a huge meaning. It was used to represent the rugged topography of the eastern Zagros Mountains. For the people living down in the flat alluvial plains, these mountains were completely dualistic. They were feared as this dark home of demons, but they were also deeply revered as the sacred source of life. Why? Because it was from their snowy peaks that the Tigris and Euphrates rivers descended. In fact, on ancient Akkadian seals, you'll frequently see the water god Ea rising directly out of these geometric mountain patterns, literally with streams of fertilizing water flowing right from his shoulders.
Which brings us to what our princess is actually wearing, the kaunikes. This was a specific kind of woolen skirt characterized by these dense, overlapping tufts. By carving that specific mountain and rain pattern directly into the kaunikes of the Bactrian Princess, these artisans were doing something incredibly revolutionary. They were taking cosmic geography and translating it directly onto the physical body of the figure. The dress of the goddess literally transforms into the fertile water mountain itself. She basically becomes the primary source of life, rain, and agricultural abundance.
And, this visual evolution represents a massive societal shift. If you look at earlier Mesopotamian goddess figures, they were often just these small clay amulets focused entirely on physical maternity and birth. But then, with the Bactrian princess, we see this primitive visual language totally co-opted and elevated. As urban centers grew and class stratification set in during the Bronze Age, ruling elites transformed this simple symbol of maternal fertility into a highly sophisticated political and cosmic tool. The princess became this majestic, elite icon holding the immense power of the mountains and the water.
Okay, so we understand the symbolism of her clothing, but that still leaves our big question. Why three interlocking pieces? Well, the answer to that actually lies outside of physical art. It lies in the philosophical mind, governed by a very specific rule, the rule of three.
This is where it gets brilliant. This physical artifact literally embodies a foundational spiritual trinity. The Proto-Zoroastrian faith, which emerged from the religious crucible of Central Asia, is built entirely upon a core ethical triad, Humata, Hukta, and Harshta. Translated, that means good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. The Bactrian Princess is engineered as exactly three independent, interlocking physical components to physically mirror this exact moral journey. Think about it. You have the heavy base representing the earthly body and our actions, good deeds. You have the distinct headdress representing our celestial connection, good words. And you have that pure, white calcite face representing the purified moral intellect, good thoughts. And this concept carried forward so powerfully into later history. If you're at all familiar with Zoroastrianism, you'll immediately recognize its greatest symbol, the Har. It's that beautiful winged disc depicting a human figure. Well, if you look closely at the wings on that symbol, they're composed of exactly 3 distinct layers of feathers. And yep, those layers represent that exact same foundational trinity we just talked about: good thoughts, good words, good deeds. It's the central mechanism through which human beings exercise their free will to maintain cosmic order, known as Asha, against the forces of chaos. The Bactrian Princess is essentially a prehistoric 3D puzzle representing this exact same philosophy. Her perfect balance requires the alignment of all 3 parts, just like a human soul requires the alignment of thoughts, words, and actions. But this wasn't just some hyper-local philosophy. This tripartite ethical responsibility established a universal connection that completely changed how humanity viewed the afterlife. For the first time, the idea was taking root that your thoughts, your words, and your deeds would eventually be evaluated.
To put that into perspective, let's compare how different cultures viewed the end of life back then. In older Mesopotamian systems, the afterlife was honestly pretty pessimistic. Everyone, regardless of how good or bad they lived, descended into the same dark, dusty, undifferentiated underworld. There was no personal moral trial at all. But look at the BMAC and Proto-Zoroastrian system. It introduced an individual moral trial based on those thoughts, words, and deeds. And amazingly, this perfectly mirrors what was developing over in ancient Egypt, where the deceased suddenly faced a personalized judgment based strictly on their earthly morality. In the Proto-Zoroastrian belief system, this personal judgment is guided by an entity known as Dana. Dana is basically the personified moral conscience of the individual soul. She is often described in the texts as a sacred, white-armed female guide. And it is incredibly telling that the pristine, visually striking white calcite face of the Bactrian Princess perfectly mirrors this concept of a pure, intellectual moral conscience. She represents the inner truth that will ultimately guide the soul after death. Now, in the BMAC and Zoroastrian tradition, the Diana guides the soul across what's called the Chinvat Bridge, the Bridge of Judgment. If your thoughts, words, and deeds were good, the bridge is wide and easy to cross. But if they were bad, it becomes razor thin and you fall. This is strikingly similar to the Egyptian Hall of Double Mayat. Egyptian funerary culture was entirely defined by the weighing of the heart against the feather of Mat, which represented justice and cosmic order. It's fascinating because both of these ancient traditions independently arrived at the exact same revolutionary conclusion that our eternal fate is directly tied to our earthly morality. So, what's the ultimate takeaway from all this? The most profound realization we can draw from this artifact is this: salvation is not guaranteed by ritual alone, but is contingent upon personal, ethical responsibility. The Bactrian Princess isn't just some idol meant to be blindly worshipped. She's actually a didactic tool. She is a permanent reminder that the elites of the Bronze Age were beginning to understand a huge concept, that just controlling the water and the mountains wasn't enough anymore. To truly maintain cosmic order, human beings had to exercise personal, ethical free will. This incredibly bold idea laid the absolute foundation for the dualistic afterlife architecture, heaven, hell, and individual salvation, that would eventually define almost every major world religion.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought to chew on. We started this explainer by asking why a masterpiece was engineered to fall into 3 pieces without any glue. Well, we now know it was because cosmic harmony requires perfect alignment. If even one piece is off-center, the whole statue falls apart. And you know what? The exact same goes for us. Humanity's deepest, most complex spiritual beliefs were brilliantly compressed right into this stone engineering. So taking a look at your own life, are your own thoughts, words, and deeds in perfect balance today? I really hope this journey has completely shifted how you look at ancient art. Keep exploring, and as always, keep questioning.